Welcome back to the Circadian Institute, where the lights are low and the hours ahead belong to rest. Tonight we follow one quiet thread through the dark: magnetism, the invisible force woven through the world. It is everywhere and almost never seen. In the trembling needle of a compass, in the slow green fire of the auroras, in the deep iron heart of the earth, the same steady pull keeps its silent work. Picture a compass on a still table, its needle turning by itself until it points toward the north, answering a field that fills the room, the house, the whole turning planet without a sound. Far above, the sun breathes out a thin stream of charged particles, and the Earth's magnetic field bends them aside, curving them toward the poles where they bloom into ribbons of light. There is no need to follow closely or remember a thing. Let the facts arrive like distant weather, and let this steady, unseen force carry you slowly toward sleep. Magnetism is one of the quiet forces that shapes the world without ever being seen. A pull and a push moving through empty air, asking nothing, touching everything it can reach. Hold a magnet near a paper clip and feel the small tug before they meet. That faint reaching across a gap is a magnetic field, filling the space around the magnet. The field has no edges you can trace with a finger, yet it is real and measurable, growing stronger as you draw close and fading as you move away into stillness. Picture iron filings scattered on paper above a magnet, settling into soft curved lines. They are simply following the shape of the field, revealing what the eye alone could never see. There is something restful in knowing such a force exists all around, invisible and steady, never loud, never hurried, woven quietly through the ordinary spaces of the night. Every magnet carries two ends, named long ago for the directions they seek, a north pole and a south pole, two halves of a single steady arrangement. Bring two north poles together and you feel them refuse, a soft resistance in the hands, like poles repel, easing apart as if each preferred its own space. Turn one magnet around, and the feeling reverses. North meets south and they draw close, opposite poles attracting, settling toward each other with a calm and certain pull. This simple rule never wavers. Same pushes away, opposite pulls near. It is one of nature's most dependable agreements, holding true in every magnet, large or small. Imagine the slow choreography of two magnets on a smooth table, sliding together or apart, obeying a law as constant as the turning of the evening sky. Magnetism does not arrive from nowhere. It rises from motion deep within matter, from electric charge that moves, and from the spin of countless tiny electrons. Each electron behaves a little like a spinning point of charge, and that turning gives it a faint magnetic character of its own, smaller than imagining can comfortably hold. In most materials, these tiny influences point every which way, canceling one another into quietness, so the object as a whole shows no magnetism at all. But in iron, the inner alignments can fall into agreement, all those small spins leaning the same way, adding together until the whole piece becomes a magnet. So the strength of a magnet is really a kind of harmony, a great many small things turned in the same direction, agreeing softly across the dark of the metal. Reach out with a magnet and most of the world stays unmoved. Wood, glass, water, plastic, gold, and copper all rest unbothered, indifferent to the field passing through them. Only a small family of materials truly answers the call. Iron is the most familiar, joined by nickel and cobalt, metals that can be coaxed into magnetism. These are the materials that can be magnetized, holding the alignment of their inner spins, becoming magnets themselves and keeping the memory of that order. It is a gentle reminder that not everything responds to every force, and that much of the world remains serenely still while a chosen few quietly take part. Picture a magnet drawn across a tabletop of scattered objects, passing over so many in silence, until at last it finds the iron and lifts it with ease. Suppose you took a bar magnet and wished to keep only its north end, cutting the south away. The result would surprise the hand that tried it. For the moment the magnet is divided, two new poles appear at the cut, and each piece becomes a complete small magnet with a north and a south of its own. Cut again, and it happens once more. Each fragment, however tiny, insists on having both poles, never content to carry only one. No one has ever held a magnet with a single pole alone. The pairing seems written into the deepest nature of the thing, faithful at every scale. There is a quiet wholeness in this, the way a magnet refuses to be left half-finished, always restoring its missing pole no matter how small it grows. Magnetism does not stand alone in the world. It is one face of a larger force that joins it inseparably to electricity, the two bound together as electromagnetism. Wherever electric charge moves, a magnetic field appears alongside it, and a changing magnetic field can stir electric charge in turn, each forever calling to the other. This is why a current flowing through a coiled wire can become a magnet at will, summoned by motion and dismissed again when the flow goes still. Light itself is a ripple of this united force, electric and magnetic fields rising and falling together as they cross the long darkness between the stars. Knowing this, the small magnet on a shelf feels less ordinary, a humble cousin of starlight, sharing in the same deep partnership that fills the universe. A compass needle is only a slender magnet, balanced so freely that it can turn, and it settles itself in line with the great magnetic field of the Earth. Its north pole is drawn toward the planet's far north, and so for centuries it has shown travelers the way through fog, through forest, through the unmarked open sea. What guides the needle is the same law as before: opposite poles attract, the small magnet leaning toward the vast one beneath everyone's feet. The magnetic north it finds is not quite the fixed pole of the maps. It shifts slowly year by year, wandering across the high Arctic in its own unhurried way. Imagine a needle trembling, then growing still, choosing its direction in the quiet, a tiny piece of metal listening to a force that wraps the whole world. High above the polar night, the sky sometimes fills with slow ribbons of light, soft green and violet folding across the dark in unhurried breathing waves. This is the aurora, and behind its beauty stands magnetism, the Earth's field guiding particles streaming from the sun toward the cold air near the poles. When those particles meet the gases high overhead, the air begins to shine, releasing light as it settles back to rest, painting the night without a sound. Even on the rare nights, the sun sends a stronger stream our way. The planet's field gathers and turns it, sheltering the world below in calm. So the curtains of color are a kind of conversation, the sun's quiet breath answered by the Earth's invisible field, written gently across the highest reaches of the sky. Rest here a moment. There is nowhere to be and nothing to hold. The same quiet force that wraps the planet is wrapped just as quietly around this hour of yours. Let your breath slow to the rhythm of something larger, in like a tide turning out like the long exhale of a calm and darkened sky. Nothing here needs solving. Let the thoughts settle the way iron filings settle into smooth, unhurried curves when the noise around them finally falls still. Far beneath the oceans and the stone, the earth keeps a heart of metal, an outer core of molten iron forever turning in slow, warm currents. That moving metal carries electric charge, and where charge moves, a magnetic field is born, so the planet generates its own great field from deep within. This is why the whole Earth behaves like a single enormous magnet, with poles of its own, holding the compass needle and the migrating bird alike. The field reaches far beyond the ground, out past the clouds and into space, forming a vast, soft shell that surrounds the planet on every side. It is steadying to consider. An invisible field made in the molten dark below, wrapped around the whole world, holding its quiet shape through the long silence of the night. High above the winter world, the sky begins to glow, soft ribbons of green and violet rippling across the dark, the visible trace of a field we otherwise never see. Each shimmer of the aurora is a meeting place, where particles from the sun follow Earth's magnetic lines down toward the poles and brush against the upper air in light. The curtains of color drift and fold without a sound, an old and faithful display written across the night by magnetism that has guarded this planet for billions of years. Picture yourself beneath that glow, the cold air still, the colors moving slow, and the quiet understanding that an unseen field is shaping every graceful turn of light above. When the aurora fades back into darkness, the field remains invisible once more, wrapped around the whole planet, holding its gentle shape through the long and peaceful silence of the night. Deep within our planet lies a core of molten iron, slowly turning, and from its restless motion the Earth's own magnetic field is continuously made. That hidden field reaches all the way to the surface, where a small magnetized needle set free to swing will turn and settle, pointing faithfully toward the distant north. For centuries, a simple compass has answered this invisible pull, a humble instrument listening to a force born thousands of miles below, in the dark and iron heart of the world. Imagine the field rising from the depths, curving out into space and folding back again, a vast and quiet shape that cradles the whole planet without ever being seen. It is restful to think of the ground beneath holding such a steady force, the same magnetism that turns a compass needle also wrapping softly around the sleeping Earth. Across the living world, certain animals can sense the Earth's magnetic field, reading its invisible lines the way we might read the slow turning of the stars overhead. Migrating birds carry this quiet ability within them, finding their long way across continents and oceans, guided in part by a force no human eye has ever directly seen. Sea turtles, too, are thought to follow the field's gentle gradients, tracing ancient routes through dark water, returning across years to the shores where their own lives began. Picture these travelers moving through the night, calm and sure, attuned to a magnetism that threads the whole planet, a guidance written softly into the fabric of the world. There is awe in the thought that the same field which steadies a compass also steadies a journey, helping creatures find their way home through the wide and darkened sky. Far above the scale of any single star, our Milky Way galaxy carries a magnetic field of its own, faint and sprawling, woven through its great turning wheel of light. This galactic field is gentle but immense, stretching across distances so vast that light itself takes tens of thousands of years to cross from one quiet edge to the other. Threaded among the dust and gas between the stars, the field helps shape the slow drift of cosmic clouds, lending soft structure to the dark spaces where new stars are born. Imagine the whole galaxy turning, and woven invisibly through it a tapestry of magnetism, holding together the long, slow story of clouds collapsing into stars across the ages. Let the mind rest in that scale for a moment. An entire galaxy gently magnetized, its unseen field threading the dark between billions of stars, calm and unhurried and old. Think of how iron leans toward a magnet, not with effort, but with an ease that needs no trying. Let sleep draw you the same gentle way. Breathe slowly and feel yourself lean toward rest, every muscle quieting, every thought losing its edge in the warm dark. You need not reach for sleep tonight. Like iron to the field, you are already turning toward it. Simply let the pull take you home. Out in the far reaches of space, magnetic fields help shape some of the grandest forms in the cosmos, sculpting jets of gas that stream outward across enormous distances. Where matter gathers and swirls, an unseen field can guide it, lifting glowing material into long, narrow beams that reach far out into the dark with quiet, steady grace. These same fields drift through great clouds of gas between the stars, lending them shape and structure, helping the slow collapse that one day kindles a new and distant sun. Picture a soft, luminous jet, narrow and immense, held in line by magnetism alone, traveling outward through the silence in a process unfolding far too slowly for any eye to follow. It is calming to know that even the largest motions out there are shaped by something invisible and orderly, an unseen hand of magnetism steadily arranging the architecture of the heavens. Between the bright points of the stars lies a darkness that is never truly empty, for magnetism threads calmly through it, mostly unseen yet present nearly everywhere we look. These cosmic fields are invisible to the eye, woven through the great silences of space, and only through careful science have we learned to trace their soft and sprawling presence. From the sun to the planets, from lone stars to the whole turning galaxy, magnetism appears again and again, a recurring thread in the long, calm story of the universe. Imagine all of it at once: the auroras, the giant fields of Jupiter, the distant magnetars, the galaxy's faint weave, each a verse in one quiet, unseen song. As sleep draws near, let that thought settle like the night itself, an invisible field threading the dark between the stars, steady and ancient, holding its gentle shape while you rest. Inside a hard drive, a slim disk spins beneath an arm finer than a whisper, and tiny regions of metal tilt their magnetic poles one way or the other, holding your photographs as patterns of north and south. Every song you have ever saved to a spinning disk lives there as magnetism alone, countless invisible magnets too small to see, each remembering a single quiet bit until you ask for it again. Long before the disk, magnetic tape carried music in a ribbon of fine iron dust, its grains aligned by sound itself so that a melody became a faint pattern combed into them. Picture a whole library of voices and pictures kept not in ink, but in the leanings of atoms, a silent archive where nothing glows and nothing hums, only the orientation of unseen poles. There is a calm in knowing that memory can be made of magnetism, that the things we wish to keep can rest in metal, waiting steadily in the dark to be read once more. An MRI scanner is, at its heart, an enormous magnet, strong and steady, wrapping a still field around whoever lies inside and coaxing the body's own atoms to whisper back their position. Within the field, the hydrogen in water lines up like a meadow of tiny needles, all pointing the same way, and a soft pulse of radio sets them humming a faint, readable note. From those quiet notes, a machine assembles a picture, slice by careful slice, letting us look within without a single cut, guided only by magnetism and the calm of physics. It is a remarkable gentleness that strong magnets can map the soft interior of living things using nothing sharper than a steady field and the cooperation of ordinary atoms. Imagine the hush of that room, the great magnet never resting yet, never moving, holding its invisible shape so that hidden structures can be seen kindly in soft shades of gray. A maglev train does not ride on wheels at all. It hovers a finger's width above its track, lifted by magnets that push against magnets, suspended on nothing but a force you cannot see. Because no metal grinds on metal, the ride is uncommonly smooth, the carriage gliding on a cushion of magnetism, carried forward by fields that pull it gently along the guideway. The same repulsion that nudges two like poles apart, when arranged with care along a rail, becomes strong enough to hold a whole train aloft, floating in steady, silent balance. Picture the carriages slipping through the night with almost no sound, no clatter of joints, just the long, quiet hush of something held up by an invisible hand of force. There is marvel in a journey made of floating, a reminder that magnetism is not only small and hidden, but powerful enough to lift the heavy and let it travel as if weightless. Across the turning seasons, certain animals find their way over enormous distances, and some among them seem to sense the magnetic field that humans cannot feel at all. Migrating birds are thought to read the Earth's field as a kind of map and compass woven into the air, holding their course across oceans by night. Sea turtles, too, appear to carry an inner sense of the field, returning across great stretches of water to the very shores where their lives began. They do not see the field any more than we do, yet something within them responds, drawn along invisible lines that span entire hemispheres. Picture a small bird far out over dark water, never lost, guided by a force it will never name, the same quiet field that turns the compass home. A compass needle is a small magnet free to turn, and it swings until it aligns with the great magnetic field of the Earth, settling toward the north as if remembering an old direction. For centuries, this quiet, trembling needle has guided travelers across trackless seas, asking nothing, needing no power, only the steady, invisible field that wraps the whole planet. What the needle feels is the Earth itself behaving as a magnet, its molten iron core stirring slowly far below, generating a field that reaches out through rock and ocean and air. Hold the thought of that needle finding its way in darkness, alone on a still table, drawn by something it cannot touch toward a pole it will never reach. The same field that turns the needle also turns within migrating birds and turtles who carry their own faint sense of it, reading the planet's magnetism to find their way home. High above the polar night, the auroras unfurl in slow curtains of green and rose, the visible trace of particles from the sun being guided down along the lines of Earth's magnetic field. Those drifting particles do not wander where they please. The planet's field bends their paths toward the poles, where they meet the upper air and set it glowing in soft, shifting color. Each ribbon of light is a quiet conversation between the sun and the Earth, the solar wind arriving and the magnetic field answering, shaping the glow into folds that ripple without sound. Picture the colors breathing across the dark, never quite the same from moment to moment, painted by an invisible field that decides where the falling particles may land. It is steadying to know the sky's most beautiful light is also a sign of protection, the Earth turning incoming particles aside and leaving only this gentle glow as evidence. Wrapped far beyond the air, the Earth's magnetic field forms a vast, soft shield, turning aside much of the stream of particles the sun is always serenely sending our way. Even when the sun stirs and sends a stronger gust outward, the field flexes and holds, bending the rush around the planet the way a stone parts a slow and steady river. We rarely feel this field and never see it, yet it has stood around us through every night of every age, an unseen shelter keeping its gentle shape in the long silence of space. The molten iron deep within the Earth keeps the shield alive, its slow churning far below renewing the field above, a hidden engine turning silently at the center of the world. There is comfort in an invisible guardian that asks nothing of us, holding its protective curve around the whole planet while we rest, unaware and unharmed beneath it. Before the spinning disc, music traveled on tape, a long brown ribbon dusted with countless particles of iron, each able to be turned by a passing field into a tiny record of sound. As the tape slid past a small magnet, the sound of the moment combed the grains into patterns, freezing a voice or a violin into the faint leanings of metal too small to see. To play it back, the ribbon passed another magnet that read those leanings and turned them once more into sound, the music rising again from nothing but aligned dust. Imagine an entire symphony held in a thread you could wind around your hand, kept not as marks or grooves, but as the quiet orientation of magnetic specks. Old tapes still carry their songs in this way, steady and unhurried, the magnetism within them holding a melody steady through the years until something asks to hear it. Far beneath the oceans and the rock, the Earth's outer core is a sea of molten iron, churning slowly, and as it moves, it generates the magnetic field that surrounds us all. This is the true source of the compass needle's pull, not some distant point in the cold, but a vast warm current of metal flowing deep below our feet, unseen and ceaseless. The motion is unhurried by our measure, turning over across long stretches of time, yet from it springs a field large enough to reach past the air and into the dark of space. Picture that hidden ocean of iron, glowing and slow, stirring in perpetual quiet, weaving the invisible lines that the needle feels and the auroras trace across the sky. It is a wonder that the field guiding ships and shaping the northern lights is borne so far below, in a place no eye will ever see, kept alive by the planet's own slow heat. The same quiet force that swings a compass needle also lifts a floating train, stores a song in a spinning disk, and lets a great magnet glimpse the soft interior of the body. Magnetism wears many faces, yet it is one thing throughout, a single principle linking the smallest aligned atom on a tape to the vast shield wrapped around the entire world. Consider how one invisible field reaches from the iron dust in a ribbon of music to the molten core of the planet, the same nature at every scale, large and small alike. From the hum of a scanner to the glow at the poles, all of it springs from the way moving charge and turning poles speak to one another across distance, unseen but never absent. There is a deep calm in such unity, in knowing that the needle, the train, the music, and the sky are all expressions of a single, steady, invisible force. The same invisible nature that turns a compass on a quiet table also threads through the sun, whose own vast magnetism shapes its surface and sends the slow wind out toward us. Across the wider sky, fields far larger than our planet's stretch between the stars, faint and immense, the same kind of force at work in places too distant to ever visit. Picture one principle reaching from the needle in your hand to the heart of the sun and onward into the dark between the stars, a single thread binding the near and the unimaginably far. It is a wonder worth resting in, that the small force guiding a traveler and the great fields holding the cosmos in their slow patterns are, in truth, one and the same. As sleep draws near, let the thought settle softly, that one quiet, invisible field links the needle, the sky, the sun, and the distant stars, and wraps us all in its calm. The night's wonders can rest now, the way the world rests inside its quiet field. We have wandered through compasses and cores, auroras and the breathing of the sun. All of it remains true while you sleep, the iron turning slowly in the Earth's deep center, generating the field that has guided wings and needles for ages. Above, the magnetic shield still curves the solar wind aside, painting its slow light at the poles, working on through the long dark whether or not anyone watches. There is nothing to carry forward from any of it. Let the facts loosen their shape and dissolve, the way ripples of aurora soften back into plain night sky. What remains is only the steadiness underneath, an unseen field holding its gentle form, and you settling at last into the quiet it has kept all along. It is time now to let everything go dim. The compass has stilled, the auroras have faded to a faint last glow, and the night asks nothing more of you. Let your breath grow slow and even, each one a little farther from the waking world, each one carrying you deeper into warm and welcome dark. Far below, the earth's iron heart turns on without a sound, keeping its quiet field steady around you through every hour until morning. There is no thought left to hold, no fact to keep. Let them all drift off like distant light, leaving only the soft, dark hush of rest. Sleep well now, held within the planet's invisible calm. The Circadian Institute will keep the quiet watch, and the night will carry you the rest of the way. Beneath your feet, far past the rocks and the roots, the whole earth behaves like a single enormous magnet, quietly pointing the way it has pointed for countless ages. It is not the work of a buried lodestone or a hidden mountain of iron, but something stranger and steadier, a field born from motion deep within the planet's core. Picture two faint poles, one in the far north and one in the far south, and between them invisible lines of force arcing across the sky and around the sea. Every compass needle that has ever steadied itself toward north was answering this same silent pull, the planet whispering its orientation to a sliver of trembling metal. There is a quiet comfort in knowing it is always there, this great unseen magnetism holding its quiet shape through every hour of the turning night. Travel inward, thousands of kilometers down, and you reach the outer core, a vast ocean of molten iron, glowing and fluid, slowly churning in the dark. As that liquid metal swirls and rises and sinks, it generates electric currents, and from those currents the planet's magnetic field is endlessly, steadily made. Scientists call this the geodynamo, a self-sustaining engine of moving iron and flowing charge that has been turning in one form or another for billions of years. Imagine heat escaping the inner core, stirring the metal above it into slow convection, each unhurried loop adding its small contribution to the field that surrounds us. It is a strange comfort. The same restless fire at the heart of the world is the reason a needle can find north, and the reason the sky sometimes glows. The magnetic poles and the geographic poles are close companions, yet they are not the same place, separated by hundreds of kilometers of ice and open water. Spin the globe and the geographic poles sit fixed at the top and bottom, the still points around which all the latitudes wheel, the magnetic poles wander nearby. Because the molten core is always moving, the magnetic poles slowly drift over decades, tracing slow paths across the polar regions year by year. When a compass points north, it points not quite to the true pole, but toward this restless magnetic neighbor, an honest small difference mapmakers have long accounted for. Resting in that thought, you can almost feel the calm of it. Two kinds of north, one fixed, one wandering, both quietly real beneath the same calm stars. Reaching far beyond the atmosphere, the magnetic field swells outward into space, forming a vast region called the magnetosphere, a bubble of influence wrapped around the entire world. You cannot see it or touch it, yet it extends tens of thousands of kilometers above you, an enormous, silent dome shaped by the planet's own magnetism. Within this bubble, the magnetic field reigns, steering charged particles along its curving lines instead of letting them rush straight down toward the surface. Think of it as a sphere of quiet authority, set up by molten iron far below and projected outward into the emptiness of near-Earth space. It is a steadying picture for a sleepy mind, the whole planet held inside a soft, invisible shell, sustained without effort through the long dark. The sun is always exhaling, a thin, ceaseless stream of charged particles flowing outward in every direction, a current astronomers call the solar wind. This wind travels for days across the emptiness between worlds, and when it finally reaches us, the magnetosphere is waiting, ready to turn it gently aside. Rather than striking the air head-on, most of the solar wind is deflected, sliding around the magnetic bubble the way a slow river parts around a smooth stone. Even when the sun grows lively and the wind quickens, the field absorbs and redirects it, keeping the calm beneath largely undisturbed. So the planet sails through this endless solar breeze, sheltered by a shield it carries with it, never needing to brace, simply holding its quiet shape. Without its magnetic field, Earth would meet the solar wind unguarded, and over long ages that steady stream could slowly strip the atmosphere thin. Instead, the magnetosphere stands between the sun's particles and the air we breathe, deflecting much of the flow and helping the atmosphere remain intact. The oceans, the clouds, the breathable sky, all of it rests within this protection, sheltered by something woven from nothing but moving iron and field lines. Consider how the field guards life itself, not by force but by gentle deflection, easing the charged stream around the planet, like wind around a sail. It is a quiet kind of care, performed without ceasing, a shield raised by the deep core, holding the conditions for living things in place. Out in space, the magnetosphere is not a tidy sphere at all. The pressing solar wind squashes it flat on the side that faces the sun. On the day side, it is compressed and rounded, pushed inward where the solar wind leans against it, a smooth curved face turned toward the light. On the night side, the very opposite happens. The field is drawn out into an immense streaming tail that trails far behind the planet into darkness. Seen whole, the magnetosphere takes the shape of a great teardrop, blunt toward the sun and tapering away on the side turned to the stars. Hold that gentle image as you settle, the Earth gliding forward, its magnetic shape molded by sunlight, flowing out long and soft behind it through the night. High above the polar world, The sky sometimes ripples into soft curtains of green and rose, the auroras, the visible signature of the field at work. Some particles from the sun are funneled along the magnetic lines down toward the poles, and where they meet the upper air, that air begins to shine. The colors are simply gases in the high atmosphere lighting up, oxygen and nitrogen glowing as the guided particles brush against them far overhead. What looks like silent fire dancing across the dark is really the magnetosphere revealing itself, sketching its hidden lines in slow drifting light. Picture that quiet glow rising and fading over the snow, a luminous reminder that the invisible field surrounding the planet is gently, constantly alive. Long before satellites, the field gave wanderers a gift. A needle that left free to turn would always settle toward the planet's magnetic north. That simple alignment let sailors cross featureless seas in fog and night, trusting a small trembling sliver of iron to keep faith with the whole earth. Animals, too, seem to read this hidden field. Certain migrating birds and sea turtles appear to sense its lines and use them to find their long way home. Across thousands of kilometers of open ocean or empty sky, these travelers hold their course, guided in part by a magnetism no eye can see. There is wonder in it, one quiet field beneath everything, read alike by a compass on a desk and a bird crossing the dark toward morning. All of it traces back to the same source, molten iron stirring in the outer core, raising a field that reaches from the planet's center far out into space. It is invisible, yet it wraps the whole world, soundless, yet it deflects the solar wind, ancient, yet renewed each moment by the turning of the deep. Above the poles it paints its slow auroras, and across every sea it steadies the needles that have guided travelers through long, uncertain nights. Far overhead it streams out into its great soft teardrop, sheltering the air and the oceans, asking nothing, holding its shape without strain. Let that be the last gentle thought as sleep draws near, a planet cradled in its own quiet magnetism, safe within an invisible field that never rests and never needs to. High above the winter world, a soft glow begins to spread across the dark, a slow ribbon of color where the air itself has started to shine, lit from far away by the sun. We call the northern version aurora borealis, and its mirror in the south aurora australis, two halves of the same quiet light that crowns the top and bottom of our spinning planet. Picture particles streaming out from the sun, carried on what scientists call the solar wind, traveling for days across the empty miles before they ever reach the edge of Earth's sky. Most of that wind never touches us at all. Earth's magnetic field curves around the planet like an invisible shell, turning the stream aside long before it arrives. Only near the poles do the field lines open downward, like funnels reaching toward space, and there a few of those particles slip in and begin to paint the high cold air with light. Earth's magnetism does not wrap the planet evenly. The lines of force gather and dive inward near the magnetic poles, leaving two open doorways where space and atmosphere quietly meet. Along those bending field lines, Charged particles from the sun spiral downward, guided like beads sliding along an unseen wire toward the upper reaches of the sky. They do not fall in a scatter. The magnetic field shapes their path, steering each one along a curve it cannot see and cannot leave, all the way down toward the air. When they finally meet the thin gas 100 miles up, the collisions release their energy as light, and the dark begins to bloom in greens and reds and faint violets. So the aurora is really a map you can see, a glowing tracing of magnetic lines that are otherwise invisible, drawn for a while across the ceiling of the world. The most familiar aurora color is green, and it comes from oxygen struck high in the atmosphere and answering with a steady, calm emerald light that pools and sways across the dark. Higher still, where the air grows thinner and rarer, oxygen can glow a deep red instead, crowning the green with a softer flush near the very top of the display. Nitrogen adds its own notes to the sky. When its molecules are touched, they shine in blues and purples, edging the curtains with cool, dim color along their lower folds. Each hue is a kind of fingerprint, telling us which gas was struck and how high it floated, so the colors quietly report the chemistry of the air far overhead. Imagine that the whole shimmering scene is simply atoms relaxing, giving back the energy they borrowed from the sun, one small flash at a time, until the sky seems to breathe in light. The aurora rarely fills the entire sky. More often it forms a vast ring, an oval of light encircling each magnetic pole, hovering far above the frozen lands below. Scientists call this shape the auroral oval, and it sits like a loose crown a little away from the pole itself, marking where the field lines best catch the incoming wind. On calm nights, the oval is thin and quiet, a slender band of glow. When the sun sends more, it widens and brightens, spreading toward lower, warmer latitudes. Two ovals exist at once, one in the north and one in the south, glowing in near mirror image, lit by the same particles guided down opposite ends of the same field. From the ground you see only a slice of that great circle passing overhead, a curtain or an arc, while the full ring turns slowly around the pole through the long night. From far above, the view changes entirely. Astronauts looking down from orbit do not see scattered curtains, but a complete glowing ring laid around the pole of the dark Earth. Picture floating in the quiet of the station, watching a band of green encircle the planet below, tracing the auroral oval hole the way no one on the ground ever can. From that height, the light seems to hang above the atmosphere like a luminous collar, thin and steady, following the curve of the world into the night side of Earth. Sometimes the ring brightens in waves as fresh solar wind arrives, the glow rippling around its circle, a slow pulse of color seen against the deep black of space. It is a humbling sight even in photographs, our whole planet wearing a crown of magnetic light, proof that the field is real and shaped and always quietly at work. Up close, the aurora often looks like hanging cloth, tall folded curtains of light that seem to ripple as if a slow wind moved through them, though no wind reaches that high. What you're watching is motion in the magnetic field itself. As the field lines shift and sway, The glowing particles riding them shift too, and the curtain appears to fold. The lower edge of a curtain can be sharp and bright while the top fades into red, because each height meets a different gas and answers with its own quiet color. Long rays sometimes shoot upward through the folds, each one tracing a single field line standing nearly straight up, a thread of light pointing the way the field is pointing. So the shimmer is not random at all. Every ripple and drape follows the architecture of an invisible field, and the sky becomes a slow drawing of magnetism in motion. Imagine the northern sky washed in faint green, the light shifting so slowly that the eye can barely follow. There is all the time in the world to watch it move. Breathe in as the glow brightens, breathe out as it fades. Let each slow ripple of light pull your shoulders a little lower, a little looser. No effort is asked of you now. Float beneath that pale, drifting curtain of color and let the quiet carry the rest of the way. For all its grandeur, the aurora makes no sound. The light unfolds in complete silence, a vast event playing out far too high and too thin for any noise to reach the ground. There is a strange peace in that. Such enormous motion overhead, whole sheets of light sweeping the sky, and yet the night stays as quiet as deep snow. The movement, too, is slower than it first seems. Curtains take long seconds to shift, brightening and fading at a calm, unhurried pace across the dark. Watching it can feel like watching the sea from a distance, the same steady rise and fall, only made of light and lifted 100 miles into the cold. Let the silence settle around you as you rest, that high stillness where particles and field lines work together without a whisper far above the sleeping world. Every aurora begins in the sun, where its restless surface flings a thin stream of charged particles outward in all directions, a wind that never quite stops blowing. That wind takes a few days to cross the distance to Earth, drifting through the dark between the worlds before it ever brushes against our planet's magnetic edge. When it arrives, the field receives it like a sail meeting a breeze, stretching and reshaping on the night side, storing energy that will later spill down toward the poles. Sometimes the sun sends a larger gust, and the auroras grow brighter and reach farther from the poles. Framed calmly, it is simply more light, a fuller glow on a fuller night. There's a gentle calm in the chain of it, a quiet wind from a distant star caught and guided by an invisible field, ending as soft color in our own dark sky. Most of the time, Earth's magnetism stays entirely hidden. It moves a compass needle and nothing more, a force we trust but almost never see with our own eyes. The aurora is the rare exception, the one moment the field steps into view, sketching its shape in green and red across the high dark air for anyone watching to follow. Where the light arcs and folds, the field arcs and folds with it. The glow is honest, showing us exactly where the unseen lines run above the turning Earth. Picture the whole field as a quiet shape around the planet, mostly invisible, occasionally lit at its edges where the sun's particles trace it into color near the poles. To watch an aurora, then, is to watch something usually beyond sight become briefly real, a reminder that the field is always there, holding its form through every silent night. Imagine standing in the deep cold under a sky just beginning to stir, the first pale green arc lifting over the horizon as the auroral oval drifts slowly overhead. It brightens without hurry, spreading into folds and ribbons, each one a glimpse of solar particles sliding down the magnetic lines that curve toward the pole behind you. Green fills the middle of the display, red softens the top, and faint blue trims the lower edge, the air itself naming each gas in quiet, luminous color. No sound comes with it, no rush, only the slow sweep of light moving across the stars, a calm so complete it seems to belong to the night itself. As the glow fades and returns, let your thoughts grow as slow and weightless as the aurora, carried on the same quiet field that wraps the whole sleeping earth. Long before maps or instruments, there was a stone that seemed to know where north lay. Lodestone, it was called, a piece of iron-rich rock that carried magnetism within it from the moment it formed. This lodestone was the first magnet anyone ever knew, a naturally magnetized form of the mineral magnetite. It needed no maker, no charge, only the slow chemistry of the deep earth that gave it its quiet pull. Picture a rough gray pebble resting in an open palm, unremarkable to the eye, yet able to draw small flecks of iron toward itself across the still air, as though the stone were softly breathing them in. No one had to invent its power. The lodestone simply held it, the way a seed holds a tree, a faint and steady force folded inside ordinary stone, waiting through the centuries to be noticed. And when it was at last set free to swing, suspended on a thread or floated on water, the stone turned of its own accord, settling toward the north and resting there, calm and certain in the dark. The word we still use, magnet, carries an old story inside it, a memory of a place. It is thought to trace back to Magnesia, a region of the ancient Greek world where such stones were said to be found. Imagine that distant landscape, hills and dust under a warm Aegean light, where curious stones lay among the ordinary ones, drawing iron toward them and earning a name that would outlast every empire around them. From that single place name, a whole science would one day grow. Every time the word magnet is spoken, it quietly echoes a corner of the ancient Mediterranean, a small inheritance carried forward across thousands of years. There is peace in how language remembers. A force invisible and timeless was given a human name, tying the silent pull of stone to a sunlit shore long since faded into legend. So the next time you hear the word, let it settle slowly in your mind, a syllable that began in old Greece and now belongs to the whole turning planet and its steady guiding field. At the heart of every compass lies a simple secret. The needle is itself a small magnet, slender and light, free to turn upon its pivot until it finds the direction it has always wanted to face. Earth, it turns out, is a vast magnet too, wrapped in a field that reaches far beyond the ground. The little needle feels this field and quietly lines itself up with it, the small answering the immense. Picture the needle swinging, hesitating, slowing, and at last coming to rest, one end held toward the north as if it had heard a distant call too faint for any ear to catch. It asks for nothing, this needle. No power, no winding, no flame, only the freedom to turn, given that it points the same direction night after night, a tiny constant in a changing world. There is a deep calm in such reliability, a sliver of magnetized metal balanced on a fine point, agreeing again and again with the great unseen field that holds the entire planet in its shape. On the old seas, before any compass, sailors leaned on the sky. The sun by day, the stars by night, told them which way to steer, and when clouds came, the way could be lost in the gray. Then the lodestone changed everything. Carried aboard, it gave seafarers a guide that did not vanish behind weather, a stone that pointed faithfully north even when the heavens were hidden from sight. Imagine a ship rocking softly on dark water, a small magnetized needle steady within, while the crew slept and the helmsman watched it hold its line through the long and quiet hours. With such a guide, the open ocean grew less fearsome. The pull of the earth, felt through a trembling needle, became a companion in the vastness, a thread of certainty drawn across the trackless sea. Across centuries, this small wonder rode in wooden hulls, sharing the watch through countless nights, asking nothing, offering only its quiet sense of north to those who trusted the dark water beneath them. For most of human history, to sail out of sight of land was to step into the unknown, with only sky and instinct to lead the way back. The compass made the unknown a little more knowable. Once a needle could be trusted to find north, ships dared to leave the safe coastlines behind, pressing far into open water where no headland or familiar hill remained to mark the way home. Think of a vessel surrounded by horizon on every side, nothing but water and weather, and yet aboard it a small magnetic needle held its bearing, turning emptiness into a course that could be followed. For centuries, this is what the compass quietly gave, the courage to cross great oceans, to journey for weeks with no land in view, guided by the steady pull of the planet itself. Whole voyages of discovery rested on that small steadiness, the same steady force that turns a stone on a thread, now carrying ships safely over the curve of the world. There is a gentle puzzle hidden in the compass. The needle points to magnetic north, the direction of the Earth's field, which is not exactly the same as true north, the fixed top of the spinning planet. This small difference between the two has a name: declination. It is the quiet angle between where the needle points and where the geographic pole truly lies, and it varies from place to place. Imagine standing somewhere on the wide earth, holding a compass, and knowing that its needle leans a little aside from true north, faithfully following the field rather than the planet's axis. Navigators learn to allow for this, adding or subtracting a small angle so the needle's honest answer could be matched to the true geography of the world they were trying to cross. It is a tender reminder that even our trusted instruments speak their own language. The compass never lies about the field. It simply tells of magnetism, and we translate it into the language of maps. What the compass really senses is the Earth itself, behaving like an enormous magnet, its field generated far below in the slow churning of molten metal at the planet's deep and hidden core. That field does not stop at the ground. It rises through the rocks, spreads through the air, and arches far out into space, a vast and invisible shape enfolding everything that lives upon the surface. When a needle turns toward north, it is answering this planetary field, a single small magnet bowing to the largest one near at hand, the two aligned across an unimaginable difference in scale. Picture the whole Earth wrapped in soft, curving lines of force, sweeping from one pole to the other, silent and steady, the very lines a compass needle reaches out to follow. There is comfort in the thought. Beneath the noise of the world, a single great field holds its shape around us all, and a humble needle can feel it and point the way. Long ago, people discovered something quietly marvelous. Stroke a sliver of iron with a lodestone, and the iron itself takes on the same gift, becoming a small magnet able to point north on its own. This is how many early compass needles were made, drawn again and again across the natural stone until the metal remembered the touch and held a north of its own within its grain. Imagine the slow, repeated motion, stone over iron, passing the invisible quality from one to the other, like lighting one candle from another so the flame may travel without ever being lessened. The lodestone gave freely and lost nothing. Its magnetism could be shared into iron after iron, each new needle carrying a small inheritance of the same steady force first found in raw stone. From that simple craft came instruments that crossed the seas. A pull discovered in a rough gray rock passed gently into slender metal and set turning toward the quiet north. Some of the earliest compasses were the simplest of things, a magnetized needle laid upon a small float, set gently on the surface of a bowl of water, left to turn until it found its rest. Freed from friction by the water, the needle could swing with the lightest touch of the Earth's field, slowly rotating until one end settled toward the north and the ripples smoothed to stillness. Picture a quiet room, a bowl and the faint trembling of a tiny needle on the water, easing around in the candlelight until it stops, pointing the way without a sound. It is a humble image of a profound truth, that the planet's vast magnetism can be read in something as small and calm as a needle resting on a film of water. From such gentle beginnings, the navigator's art was born, and the open sea, once a place of guesswork, slowly became a thing that could be measured, steered, and crossed. Across all those centuries, one thing stayed constant. A small magnet, free to turn, will line itself with the Earth's field and point us roughly and faithfully toward the north. From the first lodestone admired for its strange pull, to the floating needle, to the carried instrument that crossed whole oceans, the same gentle principle carried humanity outward over the water. Imagine the long chain of nights this needle has watched over, in countless ships, under countless skies, always answering the same vast field, always offering the same calm direction. It is worth resting on how steady this gift has been. The planet holds its magnetic shape, the needle feels it, and people, trusting that, found their way across a wide and open world. So as the day softens into dark, let that be the thought you carry down toward sleep, a whole Earth wrapped in a quiet field and a small needle somewhere, still turning gently toward north. 93 million miles away, a quiet star is turning, and woven all through it runs an invisible magnetic field, tangled and immense, far older than any story anyone has ever told. The sun is not a calm ball of fire, but a sphere of moving charged gas, and that ceaseless motion wins magnetism through it the way a slow river braids its own current. Imagine field lines you cannot see, looping out of the surface and curving back, threading the whole star in arches and knots, holding a hidden architecture inside all that light. Magnetism here is simply what moving electric charge leaves behind, and the sun is full of it, an ocean of plasma forever stirring, forever spinning fresh fields into being. There is a soft reassurance in knowing the warmth on a summer afternoon began, inside a magnetic star, light and field traveling together across the dark to reach a single open window. Scattered across the sun's bright face are darker freckles called sunspots, and though they look like shadows, each one is a place where the star's magnetism has gathered and grown strong. Where field lines bunch tightly together, they slow the churning gas that normally carries heat upward, so the surface there cools a little and dims against the surrounding glare. A sunspot is not truly dark at all. It only seems so beside its dazzling neighborhood, still glowing hotter than almost anything you could ever picture on Earth. Picture a knot in a current, a still eddy beside a rushing stream, and you have something close to a sunspot made not of water but of bottled magnetism. For 400 years, observers have sketched these spots drifting slowly across the disk, quiet records of an invisible field rising up to touch the surface and cool it for a while. Above the busy sunspots, the field lines do not stay hidden. They arch high into the sun's thin outer air, and luminous gas streams along them in great curving bridges of light. These are coronal loops, ribbons of plasma following magnetism, the way iron filings line up around a magnet, tracing in glowing gas a shape no eye could otherwise see. Some loops swell into prominences, vast arches of cooler plasma suspended far above the surface, held aloft for days by nothing more than the steady strength of the field. Were you to hang the whole Earth beneath one of these arches, the planet would pass below with room to spare, the loop towering on across an unimaginable span. Charged particles cannot simply wander. They spiral along field lines as if following invisible rails, and so the sun draws its own magnetism in lines of shining fire. The sun keeps a long, unhurried rhythm, and across roughly 11 years its magnetic field swells, tangles, and then softly reverses the north and south poles' trading places. Near the beginning of a cycle, the face is nearly clear. As the years pass, sunspots gather and multiply, then thin again toward calm, a slow tide of magnetism rising and ebbing. When the field flips, nothing is lost. The sun simply settles into its opposite arrangement and begins the long climb once more, a heartbeat measured not in seconds but in years. Two of these reversals make a fuller cycle of about 22 years, the field returning at last to where it began, a vast clock keeping time in light and shadow. There is comfort in a rhythm so much larger than a single life, a star breathing its magnetism in and out across decades, steady and unhurried in the long dark. Picture a compass needle swinging, slower and slower, until at last it stops and simply points settled, certain, asking nothing more of itself. Let your breathing find that same easy stillness, each exhale a little longer, each pause between breaths a small open space of calm. There is nothing left to steer toward tonight. Like the needle, you can rest in one direction and let everything else fall calmly away. Out from the sun in every direction streams a constant flow of charged particles, the solar wind, and it does not travel empty. It carries threads of the sun's own magnetic field with it. Picture the field stretched outward like fine-spun thread, drawn into long spirals as the sun rotates, reaching past every planet and far beyond the most distant of them. This magnetic breath fills a great bubble called the heliosphere, a region where the sun's influence holds sway, wrapping the whole family of planets in one quiet, shared field. Even at the edges of the solar system, billions of miles from any sunlight worth the name, a faint trace of solar magnetism still drifts, carried outward on that endless wind. So Earth does not float in true emptiness. It moves within the sun's extended atmosphere, bathed always in a gentle current of magnetism flowing softly from the star. Earth carries a magnetic field of its own, generated deep in a churning core of molten iron, and it meets the incoming solar wind with a calm, invisible shield. Where the sun's stream presses against our planet's field, it bends and flows around us like water, parting around a smooth stone in the bed of a slow river. Most of the charged particles are simply turned aside, guided around the planet and onward so that the surface below rests beneath an unseen sheltering curve. Two great fields touch here, the sun's and the earth's, neither solid nor visible, yet shaping each other across the dark in a long, silent meeting. It steadies the mind to think of it, a small world holding its own magnetic shape, answering the breath of a star with a quiet field of its own making. Sometimes the sun sends out a brighter gust, a surge of magnetized gas, and when it reaches Earth, a few of its particles slip down along our field lines toward the pole. High in the upper air, those particles touch the thin gases there, and the sky answers in color, soft green and rose, rippling slow across the long polar night. These are the auroras, and they are not fire but light kindled by magnetism, the meeting of two fields painted across the dark in curtains that fold and drift. After a strong solar storm, the glow can spread far from the poles, surprising watchers under skies that almost never see it, a quiet gift carried all the way from the sun. Imagine standing beneath that slow ribbon of light, knowing every shimmer marks a particle steered by Earth's field into the high air, magnetism made briefly, beautifully visible. Long before anyone understood the sun, travelers trusted a sliver of magnetized iron that always swung to point the same way, serenely aligned with the planet beneath their feet. A compass needle feels the same kind of field the sun is wound through, the universal pull of magnetism, turning to follow Earth's invisible lines toward the distant pole. The needle does not point to true north exactly, but to the magnetic pole, a wandering place that shifts slowly year by year as the molten core stirs far below. It is a small wonder to hold in the dark, a trembling needle, a deep iron heart, and an unseen field linking the two across thousands of miles of rock. From that humble instrument to the field of a whole star, the same steady force runs through everything, drawing iron and plasma alike into its quiet, ordering lines. Earth's magnetism is not ours alone to notice. Many creatures sense it, reading the planet's invisible lines as surely as you might read the warmth of the late sun. Migrating birds set their long autumn course partly by the field, holding a heading across whole oceans where there is no landmark and no shore in sight. Sea turtles, returning across vast distances to the very beach where they hatched, seem to remember its magnetic signature, a faint address written into the planet itself. The same force the sun wins through its plasma guides a small traveler home in the dark. The field, a quiet thread tying living things to the body of the earth. There is a deep calm in imagining the night sky alive with unseen navigation. Countless creatures moving softly beneath the stars, each one steadied by the planet's field. Gather the whole picture now, a magnetic sun at the center, its field flipping slow across the years, breathing a wind of magnetism out into the wide dark. That wind fills the heliosphere, the great bubble in which all the planets silently turn, so the entire solar system shares in one star's reaching, invisible field. Within it spins the Earth, holding its own magnetism, meeting the solar wind, lighting the polar skies, guiding the needle and the bird and the homeward turtle. None of it can be seen directly, and yet it shapes auroras and compasses, sunspots and glowing loops, an order woven through space without a single sound. Let that be the last thought as the light fades, a steady star, a sheltering planet, an unseen field holding it all together through the long, gentle silence of the night. All around the earth runs an invisible field, faint and steady, reaching far past the clouds. Many creatures can feel it, a quiet sense we humans were never given, threaded peacefully into their bone. We call this hidden talent magnetoreception, the ability to read the planet's magnetic field as easily as you read the warmth of sunlight. It is one of nature's oldest and softest forms of knowing. Picture the field not as lines on a page, but as a vast, slow current wrapping the whole globe, sloping toward the poles. To an animal that can sense it, this is direction itself. No map is carried, no instrument consulted. The knowledge lives within the body, an inheritance passed down through countless generations of wings and fins, ancient and unhurried. There is a deep calm in imagining it, a planet in stillness broadcasting where north lies, and so many living things tuned to listen, all of them moving in calm agreement with the earth. When autumn cools the northern skies, billions of birds rise into the night and set out on journeys longer than whole countries, navigating mostly in darkness where few landmarks show. How do they hold their course through the unlit hours? In part by sensing Earth's magnetic field, an inner compass that points the way long after the last familiar hill has faded. A small warbler weighing less than a letter can fly thousands of miles, season after season, leaning on this magnetic sense to keep its bearing across oceans it has never seen. Imagine the hush far above the sleeping land, countless wings beating in the cold air, each traveler reading the same invisible field, all of them flowing southward together. By dawn they descend to rest, having crossed the night by a guidance no eye could see. It is a quiet marvel, repeated above us every year while the world below sleeps on. On a warm beach, a sea turtle hatchling no bigger than your palm scrambles toward the waves, beginning a voyage that will carry it across an entire ocean and back again. Sea turtles can read Earth's magnetic field, and the field's strength and angle differ from place to place, giving each stretch of coastline its own faint magnetic signature. Years later, grown and far away, a female turtle returns across open water to nest on the very beach where she was born, guided by the magnetic fingerprint she learned as a hatchling. Think of that gentle homecoming, an animal carrying within it the memory of one specific shore, finding it again across thousands of miles of featureless moonlit sea. No charts, no coastlines to follow for most of the way, only the slow language of the field, remembered and trusted, drawing her steadily back toward the sand where her life began. In cold rivers and the wide gray sea, salmon live a journey shaped like a great loop, leaving their home stream as the young and returning much later to spawn where they hatched. Across the open ocean, where the smell of home cannot reach, salmon appear to use Earth's magnetic field to navigate, holding the rough direction of the coast they will need to find. As they near land, the field hands the journey over to scent, the fish recognizing the particular taste of their own river, the way you might know a place by its familiar air. Picture the silver shapes turning upstream against the current, drawn by both a magnetic memory and a remembered smell, completing a circle begun a lifetime and an ocean ago. It is a layered kind of navigation, calm and astonishing, the magnetic field for the vast distances, the senses of taste and smell for the final quiet miles back to the gravel beds. Down in the still mud of ponds and the deep sea, live bacteria so small that millions could rest on a grain of sand, and even they have learned to feel the planet's field. Inside these tiny cells lie chains of magnetite, minute crystals of iron-rich mineral, strung in a delicate line like beads that turn the whole organism into a living drifting needle. Because the chain aligns with Earth's magnetic field, the bacterium is gently swung into orientation, guided downward toward the calm, oxygen-poor sediment where it prefers to dwell. We call them magnetotactic bacteria, and they were among the first hints that life could carry built-in magnets, written into biology far below the reach of any eye. There is wonder in this smallness. The same field that steers great migrating birds also turns these specks of life, the largest journeys and the tiniest sharing one quiet compass. For all that animals do with the magnetic field, the exact way they sense it remains in many cases beautifully unsolved, a question scientists are still turning over with care. One idea points to magnetite, tiny iron-bearing crystals within cells that may shift ever so slightly with the field, like the trembling of an impossibly small compass needle. Another idea is stranger and gentler still. that certain molecules in a bird's eye may respond to the field through subtle quantum effects, letting the animal almost see direction as light. It may be that different creatures solve the puzzle in different ways, or even combine several senses at once, weaving a single sureness from many faint threads of evidence. Rather than unsettling, the not knowing is soothing, a reminder that the living world still keeps quiet secrets, and that wonder need not be hurried toward an answer tonight. Because the magnetic field changes its angle and strength from place to place, it can act not only as a compass, but as a kind of map, telling an animal roughly where on Earth it stands. Near the equator, the field's lines lie almost flat. Closer to the poles, they tip steeply downward, so the slope itself becomes a clue to latitude for a creature that can feel it. A migrating bird may sense that tilt and read its progress from it, knowing without seeing that it has come far enough south that the long crossing is nearing its rest. Imagine a map drawn in no ink at all, spread invisibly over land and sea, its contours felt rather than seen, a chart you carry simply by being alive and tuned to the field. Such inner maps have no borders and never wear away. They are renewed by the planet itself, holding their shape through every quiet night the world turns through. The field these animals trust is born far below, in the slow churning of molten iron deep within Earth's outer core, a vast hidden engine turning through unimaginable time. From that deep motion, the magnetic field rises and spreads, curving out into space and folding back at the poles, surrounding the planet in a soft, protective shape. So when a turtle or a bird reads the field, it is, in a sense, listening to the Earth's own core, sensing the distant warmth of iron it will never see far beneath the waves. The connection is softly humbling, the deepest, most hidden part of our world reaching all the way to the surface to steer a creature gliding over the open ocean. Consider how the planet seems to hold its travelers close, the field flowing up from its molten heart to whisper direction to every animal that knows how to listen. Now and then the sun sends out a stream of charged particles, and when they meet Earth's magnetic field, the field bends and shimmers, channeling them safely toward the poles. There the particles paint the polar sky with auroras, slow ribbons of green and rose, the visible trace of the same field that animals feel, but we usually cannot. During these solar gusts, the field can waver a little, and some studies suggest migrating animals may sense the shift, perhaps pausing or adjusting their course calmly. Picture a flock high in the night as the aurora glows above, the birds reading a field that flutters faintly under the sun's breath, yet finding their way all the same. Even when the sun stirs it, the field endures and settles again, wrapping the planet once more in steadiness, a quiet resilience mirrored in the creatures who lean upon it. Across the whole breadth of life, bacteria in the dark sediment, salmon in cold rivers, turtles in warm seas, birds in the high autumn air, runs this one shared and silent gift. Each creature reads the field in its own way and for its own journey, yet all of them are answering the same planet, tuned together to a single unseen presence. There is a gentle unity in that thought, So many different lives, separated by oceans and ages, all calmly oriented by the one field that holds the earth. We may not feel it ourselves, but we can rest in knowing it is there, steady beneath the migrations, beneath the tides, beneath the slow turning of the night sky. And so, as the world settles toward sleep, picture that invisible field wrapped softly around everything, holding its shape in the long, calm dark, guiding all its travelers home. Of all the metals the earth has made, only a few will answer a magnet's call. Iron, nickel, and cobalt are the faithful three, the elements we name ferromagnetic. Picture iron, the most familiar of them, an old companion of fences and nails, serenely able to hold magnetism within itself long after the world has gone still and dark. Nickel is quieter, often hidden in coins and alloys, yet it too belongs to that small family of metals willing to become magnets in their own right. Cobalt, with its deep blue name borrowed from old glass, completes the trio, holding its magnetism even when warmed, steadier than its companions in the heat. Most metals feel nothing at all when a magnet draws near. Copper, gold, aluminium stay indifferent, and there is a calm in knowing only these three truly respond. Look deeper into a piece of iron than any eye could go, and you would find it divided into countless tiny regions, each one a little magnet, each one called a domain. In ordinary iron, these domains point every which way, north here, south there, a quiet crowd facing in all directions, and so their pulls cancel into nothing. When something coaxes those domains to turn the same way, all their small magnetisms add together, and the whole piece of metal becomes a single magnet. Imagine a great gathering of compass needles, scattered and disagreeing, slowly turning until every one points the same direction. That agreement, written in metal, is what a magnet is. A magnet, then, is not magic poured into metal, but order found within it, the alignment of things already there, waiting only to be turned toward the same north. You are held the way the whole sky is held within an unseen field, softly, completely, without any weight at all resting on you. Feel the bed take what little tension remains, and let your breath move on its own, slow and unforced, like air over a sleeping sea. Nothing is pressing in. The dark is wide and kind, and you may rest inside it as long and as deeply as you wish. Every magnet keeps its strength only while it stays cool enough, for warmth and order are old opponents, and heat loves to undo what alignment has so carefully built. There is a threshold, a particular warmth named the Curie temperature, and below it the domains hold their steady arrangement, all leaning the same quiet way. Heat a magnet past that point, and the domains begin to jostle and scramble, turning to face every direction once more until their shared north is forgotten. Beyond the Curie temperature, the metal becomes ordinary again, the magnetism simply gone, not destroyed but unwound, the way a calm surface forgets a passing wind. It is a tender kind of balance. Too much warmth scatters the order, while in the cool the domains settle, and the magnet silently remembers how to be itself. Scatter a fine dust of iron filings on paper, lay a magnet beneath, and something invisible suddenly shows its shape, the field lines tracing themselves across the page. Each small filing becomes a tiny compass, turning to lie along the field, and together they sketch graceful curves arcing from one end of the magnet to the other. The lines never cross and never tangle. They sweep outward from one pole, bow through the surrounding space, and curve back home to the other in unhurried loops. You are watching in that simple dust a picture of something real but unseen, the magnetic field made visible, drawn faithfully by particles too light to resist it. Notice how the lines crowd close together near the poles and spread wide between them. Where they gather, the pull is strongest. Where they thin, the field grows soft. Long before anyone shaped a magnet, the Earth had already made its own. Magnetite is a mineral, dark and heavy, that emerges from rock already magnetic. Found in ancient stone and dark veins of ore, magnetite needs nothing done to it. Its domains arrange themselves as the rock cooled, leaving the magnetism in place. Imagine reaching into the ground and lifting a stone that peacefully tugs at iron, a piece of the planet that has carried its magnetism since long before any hand touched it. From such naturally magnetic stones came humanity's first compasses, slivers of magnetite that, allowed to swing freely, would settle toward the Earth's distant north. There is wonder in that thought, a fragment of rock made deep in the world, holding within itself a faithful pointer to the planet's own great magnetic shape. Bring a magnet close to a plain piece of iron, touching nothing, and the iron begins to change. Its domains begin to turn, and it becomes for a while a magnet too. This is induced magnetism, a quiet borrowing. The nearby magnet asks the iron's domains to line up, and they answer, so the iron can lift a third piece in turn. Picture a paper clip clinging to a magnet and a second clip clinging to the first. The magnetism has passed onward, lent from one piece of iron to the next. Draw the true magnet away, and the borrowed magnetism mostly fades. The soft iron's domains relax again toward disorder, releasing what they only briefly held. So magnetism can spread without contact, an influence reaching gently across a small gap, one ordered metal teaching its order to another simply by drawing near. Every magnet, however small, carries two ends we call poles, a north and a south, and you can never find one alone. Break a magnet and each half grows its own pair. Between and around those poles lies the field, the region of influence that fills the nearby air. Invisible yet everywhere, the magnet's quiet reach extends. Like poles ease apart and unlike poles draw together, north reaching for south across the unseen space, a soft conversation conducted entirely without sound. The field is strongest near the poles and grows fainter with distance, fading smoothly outward until, far enough away, the metal's pull is too gentle to feel at all. Within those domains lined up inside the iron, each tiny region wears its own small north and south, and the whole magnet's poles are simply their sum agreed upon. Magnetism in iron is really a story of order, of countless domains choosing the same direction, and like all order it can be made kept or in stillness let go. Stroke a needle the same way along a magnet, and you nudge its domains into agreement, coaxing a humble sliver of steel into becoming a small magnet of its own. Drop that needle, jar it hard, or warm it, and the domains can shake loose from their alignment, scattering again, the magnetism softening back toward nothing. Heat past the Curie point erases it most surely, returning the metal to its restless, every which way state, as if the arrangement had never been asked for. Yet cool the iron and align it once more, and the magnetism returns. Order in these metals is never truly gone, only resting, waiting to be gathered again. All around the small magnets of everyday life, on a refrigerator, in a compass, threads of force reach outward, unseen, a field shaped by the metal at its heart. You cannot see it, cannot hear it, yet it is genuinely there, a region of space where iron would feel a pull mapped by those curving lines the filings revealed. Hold a compass near anything magnetic and the needle stirs, leaning into a field your senses miss entirely, answering a presence that fills the air without weight or sound. Consider how much of the world works this way, real and shaping yet invisible, the magnetic field as honest as gravity, though no eye has ever once glimpsed it. There is a steadiness in such hidden things, fields holding their quiet geometry through the long dark hours, present whether watched or not, asking nothing of us. The oldest magnet was a stone. Pieces of magnetite called lodestones were the first known magnets, dark fragments of rock that mysteriously clung to iron. When such a stone was hung so it could turn freely, it slowly swung to rest, one end seeking north, and so the wandering traveler gained a faithful guide. From that simple beginning came the compass needle, a thin sliver of magnetized metal balanced to pivot, its domains aligned, forever leaning toward the distant pole. The needle does not point because it is told to, but because its own tiny field answers the vast field of the whole earth, small order greeting, great order. So a chip of naturally magnetic rock and a planet's hidden field together gave us a way to never be wholly lost, a quiet line drawn always toward home. For a long while, electricity and magnetism seemed like strangers, each keeping to its own corner of the world. Yet they are not two things at all, but one single force wearing two familiar faces. Wherever an electric current moves, a magnetic field softly blooms around it, unseen and complete. The two are bound together so closely that one can never truly travel alone. Picture a current flowing through a wire, and around it a soft, invisible halo of magnetism widening into the air, calm and circular, asking nothing of anyone. This kinship is what we now call electromagnetism, a name that simply means the two were always partners, leaning on each other in the quiet machinery of the universe. There is a quiet comfort in that unity, in knowing the world holds fewer separate forces than it first appears, and that what seemed distant turns out to be deeply, calmly joined. Send a current through a coil of wire, and a magnetic field gathers along its length, turning ordinary copper into something that can pull at iron from across a small space. We call this an electromagnet, and its quiet trick is simple. Where charge flows, magnetism follows as faithfully as a shadow follows the slow afternoon light. Imagine a nail wrapped round and round with thin wire, lying still until the current arrives, and then without a sound beginning to hold a paperclip close. The strength of such a field can grow with more loops of wire or a little more current rising and easing like the slow swell of a calm tide. It asks for nothing dramatic, only a steady flow, and in return it offers a steady pull, an invisible hand shaped entirely out of moving charge. Unlike the iron magnets that hold their pull forever, an electromagnet keeps its strength only while the current runs and lets it fade the moment the flow stops. Switch it on, and the field arrives like dawn arriving over a hill. Switch it off, and that same field simply settles back into nothing, leaving the air unmarked. This gift of being turned on and off makes the electromagnet endlessly useful, able to lift and then release, to hold and then let go, all in perfect quiet. Think of a great electromagnet at a scrapyard, lifting heavy iron when the current flows, then opening its invisible grip the instant the power eases away. There is a kind of peace in a force so obedient, one that comes when called and rests when dismissed, never lingering longer than it is wanted. The partnership runs both ways, for just as current makes magnetism, a changing magnetic field can coax electricity into flowing, almost as if from nothing at all. This quiet exchange is called induction, and it is one of the loveliest secrets of the world. Move a magnet near a wire, and current stirs to life within it. Picture a magnet sliding slowly past a loop of copper, and with each pass a small electric current rising and falling in the wire, summoned only by the motion. Nothing touches, nothing connects in the ordinary sense. The magnet simply changes the field, and the field, in changing, whispers electricity into being. It is a reminder that movement itself can be generous, that a shifting field leaves a gift behind, a small flow of charge born from the act of changing. Nearly all the electricity that lights our homes is born from this single principle. Spin a magnet near coils of wire, and current pours out from the turning. Inside a generator, motion is gathered from falling water, from steam, from wind, and turned steadily into the changing field that wakes electricity in the waiting coils. Imagine a slow river pressing against a wheel, and that turning past inward to a spinning magnet, and out at the far end, light arriving in distant windows. Every lamp glowing softly through a city's night traces back to this quiet act, a magnet turning, a field changing, current rising to meet the dark. It is a humble engine for so much warmth and light, asking only that something keep turning, so the field keeps changing, so the current keeps gently flowing. The bond between these forces was not always known. It came to light slowly across the 1800s as careful minds noticed small clues and followed them with care. Oersted saw a compass needle stir whenever a nearby current flowed, a tiny twitch that serenely announced that electricity could speak in the language of magnetism. Faraday, working with magnets and coils, found the answering truth. that a changing field could call electricity forth, completing the circle between the two. These were not loud discoveries, but steady ones, made by watching needles tremble and currents rise, and trusting that small things often carry large truths. From those quiet rooms came an understanding that now hums beneath the whole modern world, a gift handed down from people simply paying close attention. Perhaps the most wonderful thing of all is that light itself is made of these joined forces, an electromagnetic wave rippling through the emptiness of space. In light, an electric field and a magnetic field rise and fall together, each one renewing the other, the pair traveling onward without ever needing to rest. Picture sunlight crossing the vast dark from the sun to your window, not as a thing being carried, but as a wave of electromagnetism unrolling across the void. The same force that turns a generator and lifts iron in a scrapyard is the force that paints the morning sky and warms the surface of a quiet sea. So when soft light falls across a room at evening, it is electromagnetism arriving, the very same partnership of fields, having traveled a long and silent way. Deep within the earth, slow-moving molten iron acts like a vast generator, its motion stirring the field that wraps the whole planet in invisible protection. This field reaches far above the air, curving outward into space, turning aside the steady stream of particles the sun is always silently sending our way. Picture the planet held inside a soft, unseen shell, shaped by currents in its core, holding its calm form through the long hours of the turning night. It is electromagnetism on a planetary scale, born of moving metal far below and felt all the way out where the dark of space begins. Knowing it is there can settle the mind, a great steady field made by the earth itself, keeping its faithful shape while the world below sleeps. High above the cold north, the auroras glow, ribbons of green and rose drifting across the dark, the visible trace of the Earth's field meeting the sun's particles. When the sun sends out a gust of charged particles, the planet's field guides them down toward the poles, where they brush the high air and set it softly aglow. Even the largest of these solar gusts, the great storms upon the sun, are met calmly by the field, which bends their path and turns much of it aside. Imagine that slow light rippling over a sleeping landscape, silent and unhurried, the quiet handshake between a star and the magnetism of a world. There is a gentle order in it, a field doing steady work overhead, turning the sun's far-off breath into a curtain of color above the snow. Long before anyone understood the force itself, a sliver of magnetized iron, set free to turn, was found to swing always toward the north, faithful and unhurried. That small needle was reading the Earth's own field, leaning along its invisible lines, offering direction to travelers who could not yet explain the gift. Many animals share this quiet sense, for migrating birds and sea turtles seem to feel the planet's field and follow it across great trackless distances. Picture a flock crossing a dark ocean at night, holding its course not by stars alone, but by the steady field threaded all around the turning world. From a trembling compass to a bird's long journey home, the same single force guides them, a calm magnetism wrapped around the earth, pointing the way through the dark. Far north and far south, beneath the slow turn of the stars, the auroras glow above empty snow where no sound travels for miles. Let your mind go to that hush, and let your breath grow as unhurried as that distant, frozen, faintly glowing air. There is room here to let go completely. Settle deeper, soften further, and let the silence widen around you like an open polar sky. Somewhere in the high Arctic sits the North Magnetic Pole, the place a compass needle peacefully points toward, and it does not stay still, easing across the map a little more with every passing year. Year by year, this pole travels tens of kilometers, a slow walk across the frozen top of the world, slipping from Canadian waters toward Siberia, across the long unfolding of decades. Picture a compass left on a windowsill for a century. Its needle would aim at a slightly different spot now, because the pole it follows has moved on while the world slept. This restlessness comes not from the surface, but from far below, where molten iron circles in the deep outer core, its endless turning reshaping the field we carry above us. There is a calm in knowing the very north a needle seeks is itself a traveler, never fixed, always wandering by small soft measures through the steady turning of the years. Far beneath your feet, deeper than any ocean, lies Earth's outer core, an immense sea of liquid iron, hotter than you can imagine, moving in slow swirling currents. As that molten metal flows, it carries electric charge, and moving charge weaves a magnetic field, the way a turning dynamo coaxes invisible lines of force into the dark. The whole field around our planet is born here, in churning iron a couple of 1,000 kilometers down, generated fresh and continuous in the long machinery of the deep. Because those currents shift and curl over time, the field they make is never quite the same twice. Breathing and reshaping itself across centuries, we will never fully watch. Imagine that hidden ocean of metal, lightless and warm, turning over and over with infinite slowness, the quiet engine wrapping the planet in its protective, ever-changing shape. Over ages far longer than any human story, something remarkable happens. The whole magnetic field can turn itself around, north and south trading places in a complete reversal. After a reversal, a compass needle that once pointed toward the Arctic would instead settle toward the south, the entire planet's polarity in stillness inverted across deep time. These swaps are not sudden. Each reversal unfolds across thousands of years, a transformation so unhurried that no single lifetime could ever perceive it beginning or ending. On average, the field flips every few 100,000 years, though the rhythm is irregular, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, with no clock keeping a fixed appointment. Consider how slow that truly is. Whole forests rising and falling, mountains weathering down, while the field takes its long, deliberate breath and turns itself completely over. When molten rock cools and hardens, tiny iron-bearing grains within it lock into place, aligned with Earth's field, freezing a snapshot of which way north pointed that day. Layer upon ancient layer, lava flows have stacked these frozen compasses through time, and reading them in order reveals the field's direction across millions of quiet years. Scientists call this recorded memory paleomagnetism, the planet keeping its own diary in stone, each entry a moment when north was caught and held inside cooling rock. By measuring how those mineral grains are turned, researchers can tell exactly when the poles last swapped, the rocks remembering what no living thing was there to see. Imagine the whole crust as a vast archive, page after stony page, recording the slow autobiography of the magnetic field, waiting steadily to be gently read. Along the great mid-ocean ridges, fresh seafloor is born as molten rock rises, cools, and spreads outward in two directions, paving the deep with new stone over ages. Each band of new crust freezes in the field's direction at its making, so the ocean floor grows in stripes, some recording north, as it is now, some the reverse. These magnetic stripes lie in matching pairs on either side of the ridge, mirror images spreading slowly apart, a symmetry that softly confirmed how continents drift. Reading those stripes is like counting tree rings across the seabed, each one a chapter, each flip from one polarity to the next marking another ancient reversal. Picture the entire ocean bottom as a barcode of deep time, written in iron and basalt, telling the unhurried tale of every time the poles changed their minds. Beyond wandering and reversing, the field also rises and falls in strength, growing a little stronger over some centuries and easing a little weaker over others. Right now, the overall field is in a phase of slow weakening, fading by a small fraction each century, a change measured by satellites watching from above. Such weakening is nothing to fear. It has happened many times before, and the field has always recovered, part of the ordinary long-breathing life of the core. Sometimes the change is uneven, with one region softening while another holds firm, the field shifting its weight like a sleeper turning slowly in the night. There is reassurance in the long view. Across millions of years, the field has thinned and thickened countless times, and the planet has carried calmly on. Wrapped around the whole Earth is the magnetosphere, a vast invisible bubble shaped by the field, deflecting the steady stream of particles flowing outward from the sun. Even as the poles wander and the field reshapes itself, this shield endures, bending and flexing, but never letting go of the planet it has guarded for billions of years. On the sun-facing side, it presses inward. On the night side, it streams out into a long, soft tail, a teardrop of protection trailing calmly through space. When solar particles arrive, most are turned aside and slip harmlessly around us, the field doing its silent work far overhead while the world below rests. Imagine that gentle dome of force enclosing every ocean, every mountain, every sleeping creature, an unseen shape holding the long stillness of the night together. Near the poles where the field lines dip down to meet the Earth, some solar particles slide along them into the high air and set it glowing in soft color. This is the aurora, green and rose light rippling slowly across the polar dark, the visible signature of the magnetic field guiding the sun's particles home. Because the auroras gather where the magnetic poles sit, their favored haunts shift slightly over the years, following the poles on their unhurried journey across the north. Should the field ever weaken or reshape during a long reversal, those shimmering lights might wander to skies that rarely see them, a quiet rearranging of wonder. Watch in your mind that slow curtain of color overhead, silent and cool, painted by the very same field that turns a compass and steers it through the ages. Many creatures sense the magnetic field directly, reading it like an inner map. Sea turtles, migrating birds, and salmon, all finding their way by the planet's quiet pull. A songbird crossing a continent at night can hold its course by the field alone, the invisible lines giving it a heading no darkness can ever take away. As the poles wander across generations, these travelers adjust without alarm, their long inherited sense supple enough to follow a map that slowly rewrites itself. Sea turtles hatched on one beach can return decades later to the same stretch of coast, guided in part by the unique magnetic signature of that single place. There is a gentle calm in it that so much life moves in harmony with a force no eye can see, trusting the field through its slow, deep time changes. Step back far enough, and all of it becomes one slow, steady motion. The pole wandering, the field swelling and fading, the rare reversal turning the whole thing over. None of these changes arrives in haste. They unfold across thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, slower than glaciers, slower than the carving of canyons. Across every reversal the planet has known, life has continued, fish in the seas, forests on the land, carrying on beneath a field that simply, serenely turned. The compass on the table, the iron in the deep, the stripes on the sea floor, the lights at the poles, all one steady story written in the long language of time. Let the whole of it settle over you now, a planet wrapped in an ancient breathing field, changing so slowly that to us it feels like perfect, enduring calm. Far beyond the warmth of any single star, magnetism silently fills the cosmos, an invisible presence woven through the vast dark, touching nearly every corner of space we have ever learned to look toward. Picture a force you cannot see, yet one that is genuinely there, threading the emptiness between the stars, calm and constant, asking nothing of the night except that it continue turning. Magnetic fields belong to almost everything large in the heavens, from our own sun to distant planets, from solitary stars to whole galaxies turning slowly across millions of years. There is peace in this idea that the universe is not only made of light and stone, but also of quiet fields, holding their shape in the long silence overhead. Let your thoughts settle into that vastness, where unseen magnetism stretches farther than any telescope, a soft and silent architecture giving order to the wide and sleeping sky. Of all the planets circling our sun, Jupiter wears the largest magnetic field, a vast and powerful presence that reaches outward through space far beyond the giant planet itself. Imagine that field as an enormous, invisible crown, stretching so wide that if our eyes could see it, it would loom larger in the sky than the full moon. Jupiter's magnetism is born deep inside the planet, in churning layers of fluid metal where motion and pressure together stir an unseen force into being across endless quiet centuries. Around this giant world, charged particles swirl and follow the field's invisible lines, tracing patterns in the dark that no human eye has watched, yet which turn on without rest. Hold that picture lightly as you settle, the largest planetary magnetic field we know, spreading its calm and powerful shape across the cold and starlit reaches of the outer solar system. Somewhere in the deep, a rare kind of dead star spins, a neutron star called a magnetar, carrying the strongest magnetic fields known anywhere in the entire universe. These tiny stars are unimaginably dense, the collapsed hearts of stars that lived their lives long ago, now no wider than a city yet wrapped in fields beyond compare. The magnetism of a magnetar is so immense that the numbers feel almost like poetry, far stronger than anything we could ever fashion or hold here on our own quiet world. Picture one turning slowly in the dark, calm at this distance, its tremendous field threading the space around it, a faraway lantern of force you will never need to fear. Even the most powerful magnetism in the cosmos rests far, far away, doing its silent work among the stars, while the night around you stays soft and undisturbed. Our own sun holds a magnetic field of its own, vast and ever-shifting, woven through the hot tides of plasma that rise and fall across its luminous surface. From time to time, the sun stirs, sending streams of charged particles outward into space, a calm and ancient rhythm that has flowed steadily since long before the first ocean formed. When those particles meet the Earth, our planet's magnetic field welcomes and guides them, turning their arrival into the soft green light that ripples across the polar dark. Imagine that exchange unfolding far above the world, the sun breathing out, the earth peacefully answering, a slow conversation between two invisible fields carried out in silence and in light. There is a gentleness in knowing the sun's restless energy is met and turned aside, leaving the night below it calm, the stars steady, the sky safe to fall asleep beneath.